Hello again, this is Jerry. Welcome to another JavaScript lesson. As your instructor, I will show you how to create a custom pop-up dialog box. To begin, we will need two or more functions. One will display the dialog box, and the other will close the dialog box. As you can see here, we have inside the script tag, we call this display pop-up, which will display the dialog box, and to close it, we will call this close pop-up. And so, and also, we will need a user interface. We will need a user interface, which can be in the form of an image, three-dimensional figures, and HTML elements. In this tutorial, we will use the div element to create a dialog box. So we scroll down. Inside, we already set up the structure. I'll have a button to trigger the display pop-up button, and we can go ahead and just type it in here. Call this display pop-up function, and we need the close pop-up for the inside div, for when a div where it acts as a button, a cancel button or a close button for the user. So call this close pop-up function for the on-click event. Then we have, because since the ID we set the ID to pop as the dialog box itself, and the inside is we will reposition this div element into the top right corner of that dialog box, and then we will denote an X for the user to as an indication that this button or div element, you can click to close that dialog box. So on to the functions. We would need to target that ID pop, so we start with document.get element by ID. Got pop. So, and then style. Just give this the display property. Set that equal to block, and the block value is the default behavior of most of every block level element, in a way that it appears as a block level element itself, and how it should be displayed on the screen as itself. Yeah. Then we'll have document.element by ID, and we'll need another div outside of or behind the dialog box when it pops up, a content, random content, just a long enough content in order for me to enable for the user to use a scroll bar just to be able to scroll down to a certain amount of length of the page. So we'll call this main.layout. Give this a style, and we want, when they click on that function, they the main layout div will be dimmed or to the point where you cannot mostly see, be pretty much blurred in the background, and then so that the pop-up window will just actually just pop up at you. And that's common. That probably is probably common practice and common thing I've seen in other sites where it just blurs behind the page and you see, and then when a pop-up window or an alert box or dialog box pop up to engage with the user in terms of sending a message, warning, or and so forth. So the style will have a transparency called the opacity property, and set that equal to 1 as full print, full no, not 1, 0, like, but I would say 0.1, because the scale is from 0 to 1, and depending how dim or blurry, how dim you want the background to be in terms of style, as your option. So then we'll have, just copy and paste this, copy, and then paste it to the next function, because the next function is like almost an opposite of what it does for the close button. So copy and paste. So all we have to do is change the block value to none, and this will remove the element itself completely from the page. So, and then we will have, and also note that initially in the style sheet, we will have the display, the div element that has an ID of pop will initially have a value of none, but when the user clicks on the button, that value changes to block, so that the user sees the dialog box. Yeah. So for the opacity, we'll change it to 1 as the highest possible, transparency you can have, So full view, and yeah. And then let's go into the style. So for the pop ID, we will need so for the pop ID, like we said initially, we need to set this to none initially. Then we need to set the width to 400 pixels. I'll set it, randomly. We can set this height to, let's say, 250 pixels, however size you want. Then I want border 2 pixels, give it a black color and solid style line. Then the background color of that div will be blue, and then I would like to set we will want the dialog box to be fixed on the screen, where you're able to scroll down all the way down to the page where the dialog box stays in place. Doesn't like move along with the back, the other content. So set the position property to fixed. Whenever any other like fixed, absolute, relative, and so forth, other than static, we'll need to set the margins. Static, you don't have to. In a case where you want to center your block level elements. So we give this margin the left. We'll just have the left and the right margins. And they all will follow the same percentage value, 50%, and margin for the right 50%. A lot of cases you won't have to have the right margins to be set, but just only the left, because it's like the left would just essentially move the div element to the half of the half of that mark of the out of the page or document or the element the outside or the other outside element. In this case, this is 50% off from the body element. But if you don't want to set that against the body element, all you have to do is set the body. You just set, like, say you set the body margins to 0 pixels, no margins. So I have no margins, and if you like, so you can leave it that way. And then so we'll have transform property, translate translate property, the x and the y axis. We'll position the x to be negative 50%, which which essentially will be, when using percentage on a div, on an element, it uses half of the element's width. Whenever you set the position to fixed or absolute or any other, from its original position, and that's what I said, where the margin right may not be, it's not necessary, because essentially from the original x percentage will be we'll position it to the left, back to the left, to where it pushes half of that. It pushes half of the element. It pushes half of that element to the left, and so that's where it actually censors the entire element for the whole document page. So, and then you can give the y-axis 50%. I'll keep it as 50. You can change it. This is all just this. The y-axis is controlling. It's positioning it either up or downwards towards, and I will have another video on more on positionings, and also in particular more in a case of how you can position your elements to be horizontally or vertically, both horizontally and vertically at the same time. So it'll be it will be centered in the middle of the page. And I would and that will be covered in another video. So now let me see. We can have, yes, so we can have a ZIndex, which is the stack order of the elements that can the stack order overlay, starting from from some in a scale from negatives to positive numbers, and the stack order is like from in an order from like 0, 1, 2, and 3, and it goes up or down if you want it into the negatives. But in this case, I just want one stack up overlay. So that means I want the div that has the dialog box to be on top of the other div. So, but without this, I mean, it's not so necessary depending on the styling of your dialog. But because without this, if it's just either 0 or just you didn't set the ZIndex, then you will be able to see through the content behind. But if you don't want to see through it and you just have solid basic colors and some text, then that means you will need to set the ZIndex, a higher index, like a 1 or 2, depending how many elements you have on the page. So now, and also, yeah, get to it. So let's see. So whenever this is set to negative 50%, so as long as the body margin is set to 0 pixels, or you can just say 0, or that means there's no margin. That means you don't have no margins other than that. Then you can set it to 50%. But if you don't set the body margins, then you have to set it to 52% as another 2%. And this is how I know this is because I was able to line up with another div element that has the property position has no position set value, and it's just plain or static. Because when you have plain and no, when you don't set the position for an element, all you need to in order for it to center it, all you need to do is set the margins to auto, and of course you have to have a width and a depth, width and a height to to be able to see the div element or object, image, anything like that. But it have to be in work for a block level elements. So in this case, you can I'll show you once we view the page for how it works, and how it works the same for negative 50% or negative 52%. So so we just leave it here. Then for close, now we need to set that position to fix so that it's in line with the the outside div, so it doesn't like move around much. Then we need the transform property, transform translate, and then we need to set this to because hold up, before that we need to set the width to be 50 pixels, heights, yeah, 50 pixels, so that from the width we take the width of the outside div, which is the dialog box, subtract that from the current size of the closed div, and we get 350 pixels, and that, which essentially would position it far to the right. So then we can move that div, the closed div, up, have it to negative 400 pixels. That should be close enough. So when we test it out, we'll see if it's in on the top right hand corner. So you know, let's see, because a lot of times you have to play with these numbers to actually really know before you even look at it, or maybe you can tell how many pixels you have, or you can get an estimate how close you are to the position you want for your elements to be in. So yeah, then I want to set the background color, that div to be black, then the text color to white, which is the X right here will be white, and then set the font size of that X. Let's say it's 30-point font. Then text, and then align it and censor the X so it can be displayed nicely. And give it a cursor of a pointer, so that it tells the user this is a clickable event, a button. Then let's see, we would need, okay, let's give some content for the dialog box, like H1, for example. Could be whatever content you want, text, images, or some sort of game that you want to use it for, whatever you want your user, how you want your user to interact with that dialog box. So let me text aligns, let me see, no, so this will be 50% off, let's say, all items in the store. Then yeah, so we need to style it, H1, text align, center, font size, a 30-point font, transform property, to adjust the x-axis a little bit, if you like, translate the y-axis 50 pixels. That's against the other element, the closed div. It's because this is on the div close is really on top, so right above. Well, actually, it's right aligned with the div ID element, and I'm pushing the H1, this content down towards the center, pretty much. And this is however you want to center it and position it. in this case. So let's close this curly. Okay. Now we need content for the ID main. And note that we have a main layout which is separated from the dialog box ID and the other elements outside the dialog box and the button. And this is such a case where we can actually use the opacity like we have above here more effectively, because we won't be able to use it on the body, because what that would do, it would actually it would affect the entire all the elements that's inside of the body. So we need a transparency that different levels of transparency where for different elements. And that's my idea, where we have to separate sections of the contents of the elements in themselves. And that's it's another trick you can use. So the main layout would just have random content. I'll copy it. I'll copy some random text. Okay, let's copy this. It says paste. Okay. I went to lipsum.com and I put a link to the description below, and you can generate large amounts of text to be in place of your web page for the purposes of web design or user interface. And this essentially is useful when a web developer or web designer are not focusing on the content of the web page, but of the design layout of the web page, or or the website, you can say. Yeah, so we have the content here, and then because all the text here is not it's an old language centuries ago, that no one uses. So, and this is good for placeholders and stuff. And there's more information on that in the website lipsum.com. So yeah, now that should be everything. Let me see. Let's go right from the top and make sure everything's okay. Let's see. Okay, let's scroll down slowly. Make sure. Yeah. Make sure you also check your notes as well. So let's scroll down. We scroll down. Scroll down. We scroll down. See. Should be right. Yep. Everything should be okay. Should be. Yeah, everything is good. Okay, we can go ahead and save it. It'll run. I'm launching in Chrome. Let's close this. And to open or view the dialog box, we click this button that we created called pop, and we see it's censored, saying it's 50% off items. And a lot of the dialog boxes, I've seen that they produce a landing page requesting the user to input their email address to sign up for some kind of subscription and so forth, and as well. And then as you can, and you see it's blurred outside or dimmed. The opacity is like 0.1 as we set it. And we have another function, another button here, and the cursor has changed to indicate that it's clickable, or to be more user friendly, in a way. We click it, it's closed. Open, close, open. So yeah, close. So now let's head over, and also when we as we open, also as we scroll down, we can see the dialog box stays in place. So let's go over to the developer tools F12, and as we can see, let's go back in the code. In the code here, and I'd like to explain how I got the negative 50%, the transform from translate negative 50% on the x-axis of this pop div element, and also the right where I said you don't have to have to set the right margins to center a block level element. So I'll see why. So first, let me paste another div to test the centering against it. So let me see, paste. Okay. So this div has a margin set to auto with a width of 400 pixels and height of 250 pixels, the same as the other one. So that, just go ahead and save. Then we just open our back the browser, and we just refresh, close. Okay, this is our testing div, where it has with the margin is set to auto. We click pop, and as you can see, they're both aligned, centered. So we could actually click this to see it more closely. We'll just adjust the y-axis a bit and downward, so we get closer to the edge, and then we can get close up. You see the edge of here is perfectly aligned, and as well as on this side. And that's how I know, the bottom div here is centered perfectly. So let's get back. So, and another thing is when I say another thing, see, when I say I can set this to negative 52% for the x-axis. Let's say 52%. See, it's off because the reason why it's not, because I set it to negative 52%. That's only works when the body tag has a margin, has a margin. I mean, what if the body tag has a margin, but the default you can see is 8 pixels, or upwards, or but if you set the margin to 0, then all the other elements that has no the position doesn't has a property of position set, then they would follow along. They will be aligned with the layout with the body, since the body. But if you have like the bottom div has another different position, it's push it fixed position, as you can see here. let's see the div here. Let me see right here. So it'd be fixed in place. So I mean, it's not whenever it's either fixed, you know, relative or absolute. They're not part of the document original flow. But you know, so that means you have to set their margins, the left and right, at least the left and right margins, at least or just the left to the margins to actually center. And this is for all, you know, other block level elements. Um, and so um, and so see, we have to, for like with body, we have to remove that margin and let it set itself, and that's what the negative 2% makes the adjustment to get back the alignment. So you see here, see there, as well as see okay, so let's put back the margins on body, and let's go to div and put 50%. Just, I mean, it works either way, but just give you an idea and the percentage of how I got the percentage more. So also, yeah, so let's see. So if I remove the transform property, you see how this is the original, because since you see the margins, left margins set to 50%. Without that, it would just move all the way to the, you know, far left. That's the original position. But to, you know, to center it, I have to take the move it halfway to the right. So that's where I put 50%. And then the other half, as I match the top div, you can see it's half, because the 50%, when I have 50%, it's like taking the half of the width, which is 200%, you know, 50% off of 400%. 400 pixels is 200, and so you got, you know, so I put negative to go to the left. So negative 50%, it moves over to the left. So that it takes over. So the other half, you know, also moves in to the left. So, and that makes it centered. So yeah. And then again, like I say, you see where the brown orange area, those are the margins. So because like in the body, like we said before, the body, we don't set the margins, then the div, the orange area will be set. But you just set it to 0, then no margins, and then see. So like the right margin, the right margins is not necessary. So you can just leave that out. You just have the left margins and the translate x-axis to center it horizontally. So you don't need the y-axis as well, but just that. So yeah. See, it's because as you see that on the right, the orange brown area is gone. As you can see, it's not there no more. That just means it's no, you know, it's not because the centering, it doesn't affect the position of that the centering. of that div. So that's what it does, because you have you translated negative 50% to the left. So that does, pretty much goes, takes half of the div and move it over. So yeah, this completes our lesson. Thank you for watching. We have completed our lesson. You are welcome to subscribe, comment, and share. You may go to the discussion area for the requests about any web programming lessons or projects you would like me to show you.